All right, let's jump right into this explainer. You know, when we think of sporting legends, we usually picture these individuals gifted by the gods, right? People who just step onto the pitch and let their innate abilities take over. But today, we're looking way past that illusion of effortless raw talent. We're going to examine the relentless, almost terrifying obsession that created the ultimate athletic machine. Welcome to our deep dive into the engineering of a titan, the pure physiological and psychological evolution of Cristiano Ronaldo.
So I've got to start by asking you guys a question. What actually makes a legend? Is it just raw, unadulterated talent that separates the great from the truly legendary? Or is it something else? Something maybe a little more dangerous? Look, we all love to romanticize the idea of a natural genius, but as we unpack the material today, we're going to see that Ronaldo's story wasn't just about what he was born with. It was about an active, conscious choice to push human limits to an absolutely extreme degree.
Okay, picture this, a vintage, grainy clip of a 15-year-old kid. He's incredibly skinny, playing for Sporting Lisbon over in Portugal. And right at that age, doctors deliver this massive, devastating blow. They tell him he has a racing heart condition. The stakes here were absolute, guys. It could literally force him to give up football forever. The medical consensus, they thought he was simply too weak, way too frail to endure the crazy physical demands of professional sports.
And that brings us to Chapter 1, the origin of obsession.
Now, most people, especially young teenagers, would hear a diagnosis like that and just accept their fate. They'd pivot, find a safer path. But Cristiano Ronaldo, he didn't just quietly get treatment and tiptoe back onto the pitch. No, instead of accepting that early diagnosis, he used it as the primary fuel for what would become an all-consuming obsession. Let's walk through this real quick. Back in August 2003, Sporting Lisbon plays Manchester United in a friendly. This teenage Ronaldo doesn't just play well, he absolutely terrorizes the United defense. Sir Alex Ferguson was so blown away, he wouldn't even let the team leave the stadium before signing him. But arriving in England brought a brutal reality check. Between 2004 and 2006, the Premier League was ruthless. He was constantly mocked, people said he overcomplicated his stepovers, and defenders routinely bullied him, just shoving him right off the ball because he was still too slight. Yet, fast forward to 2008, and the narrative completely flips. He bags his first Champions League and his first Ballon d'Or. So how on earth did he bridge that massive gap? Well, he bridged it through a super calculated physiological evolution. When faced with the brutal friction of the English game, he didn't complain. He locked himself in the gym. Step 1, arrive at training at 7 a.m., way before anyone else. Step 2, he'd literally attach weights to his ankles, doing late-night sprint drills all alone under the stadium lights, jacking up the resistance to build explosive power. And Step 3, dominate. He transformed himself from this erratic, easily bullied winger into an absolute physical specimen.
You know, former teammates tell this consistent story of arriving at training at 7 a.m. only to find Cristiano already drenched in sweat. And that's not just a fun little anecdote. It is absolute proof of his psychotic discipline. He silenced his early doubters not by mouthing off to the press, but by flat-out outworking every single person in the building. He proved the doctors wrong, he proved the tough English defenders wrong. But here's the crazy part. For Ronaldo, all of that was literally just the warm-up.
Which brings us directly into Chapter 2, the peak and rivalry.
Having conquered England, it was time for a new frontier. In 2009, Real Madrid broke the world transfer record to bring him to Spain. Picture tens of thousands of fans chanting his name at a packed Santiago Bernabeu stadium. And this arrival, it ignited the most fierce, legendary rivalry in the history of sports, with Lionel Messi. Now let me be crystal clear for this explainer. We are staying strictly neutral on the whole GOAT debate. We're not picking sides here. What we are doing is observing how this insane dynamic forced both men to astronomical heights. Every single time Messi scored a wonder goal, Ronaldo answered back. They pushed each other to levels of greatness the sport had literally never seen before, defining an entire decade of football.
And just look at the outrageous numbers from his 9 years in Spain. He didn't just score goals, he completely redefined what football metrics could even look like. We're talking averaging more than 1 goal per game for Real Madrid, over a goal a game for nearly a decade. In the absolute highest pressure situations, like the Champions League knockout stages, he just became inevitable. He was bagging back-to-back hat-tricks against absolute giants like Atletico and Bayern Munich. He scored in 3 different Champions League finals and lifted 4 trophies with Madrid. It was a peak of unprecedented, unbelievable dominance.
So the big takeaway here is that by the time he was ready to pack up and leave Spain, his resume was just staggering. He secured 5 Ballon d'Ors in total, he thoroughly conquered Spain with Real Madrid, and then almost just to prove he could adapt all over again, he moved on and conquered Italy, winning titles with Juventus. Think about that. He scaled the absolute summit of European football multiple times over, across 3 different major leagues. For any normal human being, this would be the perfect time to bow out, right? To hit the beach and reflect on a completed legacy.
But let's move right into Chapter 3, Chasing 1,000 Goals. See, most players really start to wind down as they approach 40. If they even keep playing, it's usually a retirement tour, a chance to, relax in a lower-pressure environment. But his move to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia and his continued leadership of the Portugal national team, that is not a retirement tour. Cristiano Ronaldo simply does not know how to relax. It's a relentless continuation of his quest. He's blasting past 850, 880, and now 900 official career goals. While his peers are moving into coaching or TV punditry, he is still out there, rocketing goals into the top corner. You can actually feel the tension building in these numbers. He is showing absolutely zero signs of slowing down because his eyes are fixed on a horizon that no human being has ever reached in the official history of the sport.
1,000. That is the number. It's massive. It represents an unprecedented milestone, and he refuses to stop chasing it. To reach 1,000 official career goals requires a level of sustained excellence and physical preservation that practically defies sports science. At this point, he isn't just playing against other teams anymore. He is playing against time, against biology, and against the historical limits of the sport itself.
In a way, he's a man trapped by his own greatness. Now sure, critics will loudly claim he's just chasing personal glory, that he should step aside and make room for the next generation. But true fans, and anybody who understands the psychology we've been unpacking in this explainer today, recognize something a lot deeper. This isn't just about ego. It's simply the nature of his biologically engineered self. He refuses to let time dictate when he stops. He is hardwired to score, to conquer, and to push until the absolute very end.
Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer: psychotic discipline. It's the act of engineering oneself to master a game through a level of focus and willpower unseen in other athletes. Look, love him or hate him, whether you prefer his style of play or someone else's, you absolutely have to respect the machinery. You will likely never ever see another athlete with this exact psychological makeup, someone who took a doctor's warning of a frail heart at 15 and used it to forge the ultimate athletic weapon.
So I want to leave you guys with these final thoughts. Will CR7 actually smash through that 1,000 goal mark before his body finally forces him to retire? And, looking back at his entire engineered evolution, does this unprecedented drive make him the undisputed GOAT? It's a fascinating debate. Definitely let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments.